might have seen in the news lately all the talk about the shortage of chips and the labor shortages going on. Well, let's talk about how that affects VFX and animation. Sit down and let's have a cup of joe. Hey, don't forget to subscribe. Hey everyone, I'm back. So if you've been watching the news, you've probably seen the news about labor shortages and shortages of chips, which is affecting cars, equipment, all kinds of gadgets and such. I want to talk about how that's affecting visual effects and animation.
Europe is running short on electricity.
The pulse of a supply network currently in distress.
And now the world is running out of chips because companies can't make them fast enough.
A lack of empty containers.
There are currently 56 cargo ships anchored in the state's two largest ports.
And compared to a year ago, up 5.5%.
Mostly driven by supply-related factors.
4.1% spike. What do you think of it?
It's bothering me. It's worrying me.
We've got a huge transportation problem.
The gas pump on the car lot. Prices keep rising.
Workplaces are struggling to find people.
The Walt Disney Animation Studio is planning to open an office here in Vancouver.
If you have the right skill set, this is a job seeker's market.
You've seen the news on equipment shortages, chip shortages, labor shortages, and that's affecting all industries. It's affecting family finances, and it's affecting VFX and animation as well. So a studio's two biggest expenses generally fall into either being labor or technology. So I'm going to focus on those two areas of a studio's expenditures and talk about how this is being affected. There are three areas that we're going to look at. We're going to look at one, the manufacturing shortage, the actual chip shortage that's affecting technology. We're also going to look at the labor shortage that's affecting the labor pool and the ability to hire. And third, we're going to talk about inflation, which is a bit of a byproduct of all of that. Stay tuned to the end because I'm going to talk to you about how you can best deal with these shortages and put yourself in the best position to handle them. So on the tech side, even before we saw the semiconductor chip shortage, we were seeing the Nvidia shortage of video cards. And that mainly had to do with all the crypto miners competing with the growing visual effects and gaming world. And this has been a problem for really a couple of years, but it's really come to a head during the pandemic. But what's really gotten crazy is the semiconductor manufacturing world. It only happens through a few countries and a few places, Taiwan being the epicenter of it all. And the reality is whether it's computers, monitors, storage, even the power distribution units that go inside the racks, everything that you own that pretty much has a battery is generally going to have a microprocessor somewhere in there, some sort of semiconductor products in there, chips, transistors. Think about your phone, your toaster, your computer, your vacuum, your refrigerator. Everything has chips in it now. So this shortage that has come up during the pandemic is affecting nearly every industry. I'm sure, again, if you've looked at all the news, you'll see how car manufacturers aren't able to finish building cars. And in the same way, we're not able to see computers and storage and other related technologies get to the studios as fast as the studios would like them. There's now delays happening because of these shortages. A lot of this revolves around JIT, J-I-T, or just-in-time inventory systems. Really, over the last 40 years, there's been this information technology transformation throughout retail and manufacturing, such that it used to be in the 70s and the 60s and even into the 80s that warehouses and stores and retail outlets would carry lots of extra stock in the back, pallets and pallets of extra stock. And over time, as information technology systems have become more sophisticated, retailers and manufacturers and warehousers have been able to reduce what they keep on site because they're able to track so closely their sales and relate it back to shipping. So if they sell 5 of these products today, tomorrow the supplier is sending 5 more to them right away without any human intervention. This often happens through automation now, and this is all just-in-time inventory. You're probably very familiar with this with Amazon. The idea that you can simply get an idea of a whim of something you want, and the very next morning it just shows up at your house, that is basically just-in-time inventory from your world. But this just-in-time inventory system is very fragile, and it only takes a few variables getting broken, a few links in the chain to break the whole system. And the reality is, with the pandemic, there's been a whole lot of links in the chains of supply chains broken, and this has been a big part of why we're seeing this shortage. There's also additional elements, like there's a water shortage, a drought going on in a lot of places, but including Taiwan. So this is affecting chip shortage. And then the actual COVID effect on the workforce means that the workforce is working in a reduced capacity, and thus reducing the total manufacturing capacity. Of course, with scarcity and with delays comes higher prices. The Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, one of the largest in the world, told all of its clients about a week ago that nearly all of their processors are simply going to be going up 20%. Again, there's a lot of reasons why this is happening. COVID disruptions, disruptions to the actual raw materials that are needed coming from various countries. There's just a whole series of interruptions. And this means that this problem isn't short term. It's going to last well into 2022. And most companies are preparing it to go as far as 2023. So on the labor side, we've got what they're calling the Great Resignation. Basically, the pandemic has caused people to sort of do a check and a balance on their life and what they want and what they want to do. And this has caused people to really change direction in many different ways. I mean, first, people are figuring out what's important. If they eliminate all of a sudden the commute and they're working from home and they're able to integrate their home life and their work life and get these extra hours back, this changes all of a sudden the scale of what they're willing to do, and also reduce their costs. Maybe they're making meals more at home now rather than eating out every day at lunch out at work. They're not hitting up all the Starbuckses and all the juice places and every place where you're spending money and gas and commuting and all of this time and energy that gets spent. It's effectively more efficient from the employee's perspective to just do this from home if they can. So, hey, if it turns out that a meeting ends 10 minutes early and you can go put your laundry from the washer into the dryer, well, this sort of accentuating home life with work life, it's really found out to be a healthy balance for a lot of people. And I think people are now going to be seeking that going forward. You have some looking to just leave the rat race. I know of multiple high-tech professionals that have simply walked away and they're either living off savings for a while they figure out what they want to do. I know of one guy who left a coding job and basically decided to go manage a auto shop and spends the other half of his time writing copy for the internet, and just does it from his home, and it's a much more relaxed lifestyle for him. And I'm finding more and more people are doing this. You also have folks that are changing careers. There's a lot more opportunity with all of this hiring and inability to hire. Folks who may be working at Taco Bell are now maybe working at a better job than they would have otherwise done so. And really, there's just this disruption of the whole fabric. But if there's one thing you can take home out of all of that, is it's now a seller's market. The employee is out there in a market where the employer is dying to find someone to bring them in. And now the employee has the employer over a barrel a little bit. And this is a rare moment where the employees are effectively, they have the upper hand. So there are many people who are using this for leverage. They're basically using this to get themselves a better position, move into a different industry, maybe move to a different studio. You're going to start seeing incentives coming out, to try to woo people. So how are we going to deal with all this? Let's look at the technology side first. Everything's going to take longer to get to you, and it's going to cost more than it used to. And so how are you going to adjust to that? Well, you're going to need to forecast your buying and start doing your purchasing earlier in the game. This allows time for the supply chain to catch up with you and for you to get your computers and your servers and everything that you need. You'd be surprised. Some things will be coming in regular times. Other things will take 5 to 6 months. And, let's face it, if your rack and your storage and everything arrives, and the only thing that doesn't arrive is your power distribution units, Well, what was the point of all that? And all of that equipment is just sitting there dead with no power. So you need to have all the elements of your supply chain and all the elements of your pipeline supplied by the supply chain in advance. So start thinking in advance. Also start thinking of stockpiling. Think about buying a few machines ahead of your staffing so that you've always got a few machines in the box ready to go. Those also can be good for swap outs if you're having a hard time getting replacement parts for machines that go down. You always have a machine or two in queue. Besides buying ahead and sort of, if you will, hoarding some equipment for the future, there's another part of this, and that is trying to bundle together your purchases for buying power. The larger the purchase, the bigger the purchase, the more you can get on the radar of Dell or HP or whoever you're buying from, and make sure that you get in line faster and get that equipment sooner than maybe other people who are just buying one or two computers. So if you're a multi-location studio, you definitely want to combine your multi-location purchasing into one act. You want to buy machines for all 3 locations with one purchase from the manufacturer. That gets you a bigger footprint, and it'll get you more power with the seller trying to get that stuff on time. But sometimes you're small or you're not going to be buying that much. And one thing you can always do is team up with a partner. So I will say that at CDW, where I work, that's something that we specialize in. We're big partners with HP, Dell, a whole lot of companies, Lenovo, Autodesk, Nvidia. And so what we're able to do is bundle together our purchasing power. If we're doing multiple purchases from Dell from 3 different or 4 different studios, then we're able to bundle that into purchasing power and just be able to get better pricing and speedier equipment for everyone. So these are the ways you can combat the increasing prices and longer delays, is essentially try to make yourself bigger by aligning yourself with a partner or with your other partner or other studios in your group to try to make the purchases as big as possible. That will get you through the door and get your price down. So on the labor side, like I said, it's a seller's market. Studios are hungry for talent. Many are not even taking on work, or if they are taking on the work, they're farming it out overseas because they just can't fill the seats locally. So that puts you in a great position if you're an artist, you're in production, or if you're in technology in a studio, and you're thinking of moving within the organization or moving to another organization. You're in a very powerful position relative to previous years. Every studio is having to focus on retention and attracting good talent. So you'll notice DNEG just started paying overtime in London. Traditionally in London, they weren't paying overtime across the entire industry. It's the way the laws are carved out there, and they went ahead and started offering that. I'm sure that's part of this employee crunch and being able to get in more people, and I'm sure that that's going to leak or spread to the other studios who now need to be competitive with them and just may very well start offering overtime as well. So this is again the seller's market, the employee-friendly situation that is currently set up that favors the employee to the employer when it comes to the power dynamic. Again, work from home and remote technology has changed the game. For years, it was basically said everyone has to come into the studio, but there are many, many artists and many, many production people who are ready and willing to work from home for the long term, and I'm sure they will make their future staffing choices based on that. If there are studios, and there are many studios that will take a long-term approach to allowing people to work from home, then they may steer towards those studios. Truth be told, there are many studios that have expanded their employee footprint far beyond pre-COVID times. So if they wanted to bring back everybody, they wouldn't be able to fit them in the building anyway. And that's not even included the fact that these studios now need to spread out the desks more than they used to be COVID compliant and have protocols. So there's no way they're going to be able to fit everyone back in. There are some studios that are really looking to bring everyone back in. I'm not naming names here, but it's going to be really interesting to see how their retention holds up once they order everybody back into the studio and other studios are offering work from home. So I have many friends who are recruiters. I have many friends at the studios in management. They probably want to smack me on the back of the head for suggesting such things, but this is the time for employees to flex their power. This is the time for them to take advantage of the fact that labor costs are up, that it's getting harder and harder to hire people, and a lot of people are asking for money. Now, the fact that the machines are going up, the fact that labor is going up in cost is lending itself to inflation. So be prepared for that. That means that everything is going to cost more, not just the computers, not just the software, but everything. You're going to find that your food, your rent, a lot of things are going to be going up. We might even see increase of inflation in interest rates here in Canada, which means that people with flexible rate interest rates, those payments are going to start increasing. So be prepared for inflation. It's not all great things when everyone starts getting paid more money. There can be a lot of negative fallout, and one of those is inflation. So for folks my age in their 40s and younger, we've never experienced, at least here in the West, a real inflationary time. Our parents did back in the 70s, and certainly before that, other countries in Canada saw some bigger inflation in the past, but I don't think a lot of people in the West are ready for the level of inflation that could set in. So the best thing to do is to combat that by getting your wages up, making sure that you get yourself in a good employee situation, and whatever you need to buy, capital assets, buy them sooner rather than later, buy them in advance, and hold those assets. Don't just be so quick to get rid of them, because as scarcity increases, those old render nodes, those old computers may become increasingly valuable, both to you or to the resale market. So, that was a lot, but that's basically it. You've got to figure out how to manage this machine and semiconductor shortage, this labor shortage, and this increase in inflation that's coming. You need to figure out where you sit in this equation and position yourself in the best possible way that you can. And don't forget, coming soon is going to be the Pixar Teapot giveaway. Keep your eyes out for that video, and I'll have in there the contest rules and how you can apply for to win a free teapot. See you, everybody.